Okay, everybody, this is Joseph P. Farrell. It's news and views from the Nefarium on Thursday, December the 1st, 2011. First, a couple of announcements, then comment on the news. The announcements are I was on Jeff Rentz's show last night. That was the first show that we did. I will be a regular now on his program once a month. I believe it's going to be the fourth Wednesday of the month, so just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. Basically, we just sit around and talk. So, the second announcement is I am still researching on the sequel to Babylon's Banksters. It will be called The Blank Blank of Blank. Okay. I do want, in that respect, to thank the people that made some very generous donations that made the research possible. As a matter of fact, a few months ago, an individual gave me a donation to help me buy a book that was so rare that the price of the book was $400, but it has proven to be very helpful. So I will be hopefully getting enough chapters of that together and then send it off to the publisher that I intend to do the book. If they take the book, then it should be out either 2012 very late or sometime in 2013. The other final announcement is that my co-author, Dr. DeHart, and I are doing a couple of ebooks that we're trying to launch a series of books. These books, as I've mentioned, are going to be different in that they're not going to be nearly as well researched. They'll be more like shorter essays, books of about 100 to 150 pages that you can buy and download directly from Amazon. As you can tell, I'm still suffering from my month-long sinus. I do not know what is going on, but I'm going to try and make it through the news and views. Anyway, those are the announcements. What's in the news is obviously Iran. Last night, Britain, Germany, and France all pulled their ambassadors to Tehran. That basically means, in effect, that the United Kingdom, France, and Germany have broken diplomatic relations with Iran. Um, I just get this feeling, folks, and what I'm going to be talking about now is, in a sense, kind of the theme of some of these ebooks that Dr. DeHart and I have planned, and that's apocalypse theater. Because it looks to me as if, in a certain way, this crisis is being deliberately engineered to build to a head and come to a head next year, to, I think, in a certain sense, to exploit the already deliberately created apocalyptic atmosphere that is surrounding 2012. I find it very interesting that China and Russia have backed a regime which, if the implications of it were taken to its logical conclusion, would be as much a regime that would be a threat to their interests as to the West's. Because it is true that the Iranian regime is a rabidly apocalyptic regime. There are pictures on the internet of Iranian military installations where in Farsi on the desert they have inscribed the Farsi word for the Mahdi, the Imam Mahdi, who is of course the 12th of the great Imams of Islam, who is their messianic expectation that in the end time the Imam Mahdi will come back and lead Islam to the glorious triumph over all infidels. And Iran, of course, certainly the nuts in charge of its government, I should say, certainly see themselves as helping that agenda along. And in this respect, they're very little different from a group of people in this country that were started back in the 1930s that essentially is a kind of a right-wing Christian group that makes a deliberate attempt to go after people of importance and power and to kind of help along the apocalypse, quite frankly. We even have a Republican presidential candidate in Mitt Romney who represents, of course, the Mormon religion, which has its own apocalyptic scenario. So, in other words, we live in an apocalypse culture, and with Iran, I think what we're going to see is they're going to try and stage this in stepped responses, stepped up responses to Iran. I don't personally think that we're looking at a war scenario immediately, although it certainly is shaping up that way because the attempts of the West to break apart Syria have run afoul of a nasty little problem called Russia. And of course, the Russians have moved a very strong naval battle group into the eastern Mediterranean to counter the American buildup there. So this could get very dicey. I don't see any armed conflict over Syria. Of course, I could be wrong, but Iran is another matter. And I think what they're trying to do is step it up, stage it, and to have it coincide, any action that they might take, to have it coincide with the year 2012. So we'll see. And the reason I say that, folks, is we have to couple two things that very seldom get coupled in the news. And that is that the Iran problem is, I think, coupled to what's going on in Europe with the debt crisis. I think in a certain sense what you have are the big European governments, particularly Germany and France and Great Britain, trying to shore up the economic house in Europe, patch it together long enough to sustain a possible military adventure in Iran. So in other words, I think these two things are causally connected. They've patched up their house, and now they've broken basically what amounts to broken diplomatic relations with Iran. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. I do not expect that this is a scenario that we can work out with ironclad specificity, because the wild card in this situation is, of course, Israel and what they might do. Israel might attempt to act unilaterally, and if that's the case, the United States, I think, would be hard pressed not to follow up with support for Israel's action. That could conceivably bring some sort of rift between the United States and Europe. And this is why the European debt situation is so very important, because it's been the American Federal Reserve Central Bank that has stepped in to pump dollars into the European economy. And that, in effect, makes those European nations, with primarily the exception of Germany, which is kind of, in a certain sense, a thing unto itself within the European Union. But for the rest of Europe, this means that they are, in a certain sense, beholden to the United States. So I think that all of this has to be viewed together. The debt situation, the Federal Reserve pumping dollars into Europe, and the Iranian crisis. I think what is happening is the United States is trying to cement and solidify its support in Europe for whatever action eventually it decides to take, whether that be increased sanctions or what have you. Anyway, it is a situation that I'll keep an eye on. I do have to apologize to people that because of the heavy workload, I don't always get news posted on my website as it's happening. And that's plain and simple because I've got so much going on that it's very hard to keep up with. But anyway, I do want to thank everybody again for supporting the website with new members and talking to people and getting them interested in signing up for members. As I say, when the membership gets to the point that the website can be self-sustaining, I'll take that donate button down. But I also, again, wanted to thank people for the donations. And one final announcement, folks, we will be having a members-only vid chat tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Time, so please be there for that. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of great questions. It's a time to interact with me and for me to interact with you. Anyway, take care, everybody. I'll see you on the flip side, and God bless.